Welcome once again to the J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me on this artistic adventure. Today we'll be working with ink, pen and ink. So have your kneaded eraser, a number 2 or an HB pencil handy, and any type of ink that you would like to use. But make sure that it's archival, that it's permanent, that it's black, and a smooth ink. And let's start doing some ink drawing. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw things in with our number 2 pencil. And remember, if we draw with the side of our pencil, none of that is going to be permanent. In fact, everything you do with your pencil gets erased. So don't get attached to your pencil drawing today. So I'm going to set my pen aside and let's do our proportions. Let's figure out where we want everything to go. Baby is probably the most important one. So I'm going to throw the baby in. If I come down through about half of my paper, that's about where his little ears are. And so if I can kind of just go in and do this little kind of triangular shape to just say this is where his head's going to be. Okay, that's how big we want it. And remember, a good composition comes close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. So we'll just kind of throw that in, figure out where you want that to go. Here's his neck, or her neck. The ears are just kind of triangle shapes. So as you come out here, there's a triangle right there. Almost touches that edge. Not quite, almost. And the other one kind of comes out almost level with it. About right in there. His little, I guess you call them horns. I don't know what those are. The rest of that shape is Mama's head. And basically, she's almost half of that page. So if you come through half of your page and you just make a line kind of coming up there, we'll adjust this. And you want her eye to be not too far from the baby, so it's about right in there somewhere is her eyebrow. Here's the nose. The nose is just kind of rounded and then just a nice shape somewhere up in there. You'll see me doing this every now and then. What I'm doing is I'm lining up things with my pencil. I look at my scrap and I think to myself, oh, you know what? If I lined up his ear and his horns right here, then that points to the mama's eye. And I can kind of do something along that line. Or you can take and line up her eyebrow that's over here and go straight across and say, well, somewhere in there is an eye. You put in this little triangle shape for the eye. And we know it's rounder. We know there's more detail to it than that. But you can just throw it in. As far as the spots go, you can, if you want to, take your pencil and kind of just throw in some guidelines for your spots if you want. But it's not that big of a deal if they're in the wrong spot. No pun intended there. So now you look at it and you go, okay, is everything kind of where I want it to be? Is it as big as I want it to be? Remember, you got to take over a lot of space. So everything you see on the screen, the top of my paper is right there. The bottom of my paper is right there. Everything you see on the screen is my page. That's how big you want to make it. If you kind of decide, yeah, everything's where I need it to be, then start doing some smaller details. Mostly just kind of edges, trying to figure out where everything goes. Because a lot of this we can change. We can alter it. It can be, we're not stuck to this. Baby eye kind of comes in. Little nose. I think the most important thing is that the eyes, the nose, the mouth are in the places they need to be. So I'm looking at the edge of the ear, going straight down from the antler or the horn there on that side. It's about where that eye is. I might need to alter that a little bit, give or take. nose is his little nose or her little nose is kind of almost level with the tip of the mouth of the mother. Not quite, it's up just a little bit. Whenever you're drawing, is first of all establish where everything goes, and then you say to yourself, okay, that's too big or too little, or you need to make adjustments. Make the adjustments before you erase. Because if you erase first, then oftentimes you lose your point of reference and you make the same mistakes. And in fact, as you're going through your drawing, even when we start using ink, you're going to pick out things that you go, oh, that wasn't in the right place. Don't be stuck to your drawing. This is not perfect. Straight over from his eye is the mother's nostril. It's kind of a strange juxtaposition of the two. I've got to take that eye and adjust it down, which means I need to adjust this one down. And I've got his nose a little long, so I've got to adjust that too. And that's okay. That's what it's all about. And once you're satisfied with the way things are, then we can start using ink. So I've got my pen here, and I'm just going to go in and start picking out little dark shapes. Here's a little dark shape right here on his ear. I'm going to start there. Why? I don't know. I just feel like that's where to start. And I'm not drawing a line of all the way around things. I'm just starting out looking at those little shapes of dark and light and throwing those in as little hatch marks. I'm just going to hatch mark through things. Just the shape of the darkness that I see. If I want to, I guess I can put in little edges, little lines right here where it comes right up to the top. This is very soft and fuzzy. He's got some little hair that comes up in there. So you can take and use your pen. This is called a feathered line. I'm going to zoom into him so you can see what I'm doing. So this little top part, I'm just going to do some feathered line. This is where you kind of drop your pen in and give it a little flip. And you get this really soft edge. And when you're doing hair, some of it wants to go one way, some the other way. It's almost a random kind of a little flip. And you want that to kind of keep going. So you get a little flip here, a little flip there, because hair grows that way. And remember, we're just representing the texture of the things that we see. When in doubt, you want to leave it out. So if there's something there that you think, I don't know if I should draw that in, don't. Because you can always come back in later and draw it in. So I'm just doing these little feathered lines, and I'm barely touching the paper. Some of this edge, like on his ear right here, I can't even see that edge. So I might want to put just a little dot or a dash right there, and then pick it up over here on the tip of the ear. That's called a subliminal line. This is a subliminal line where you understand that that continues on, but you don't have to draw it. If that's too much space, put a little dot in the middle. Everybody understands that that is the edge. So just some little dots and dashes. You probably noticed that I'm not keeping up with my drawing part, that I'm moving a little bit because it wasn't quite right. I can tell that. so I'm not stuck with my drawing. Just some little dots and dashes, whatever you feel like you need to get the form and the texture in. Whenever you want to do like a wrinkle or something, he's got these little wrinkles down in his neck, over his eye. Rather than do lines, try doing little hatched lines like this. So you're doing an edge, but it's just a little dot or a dash. And you can even break them up. You can go, well, I see there's a little edge. It gets lighter, and then it gets a little darker down in there. You can break that up. And everybody makes that connection that that is a line or an edge or a wrinkle. But if you drew a line, it would look like an edge, a crease, a crevice. And you really don't want that. The inside of his ear is soft and fuzzy. So you do those feathered lines, and then you're going to hatch through those because it's really dark. That little area right there, it's really dark. So I'm just going to hatch through that. And you can go any which way you want to. Sometimes I'll hatch through it and think, oh, it needs to go darker, so I'll turn my pen or turn my wrist a little bit and do it in a different direction. So you just hatch through it as fast as you can, as much as you need to. If it's really dark, you go through it 3 or 4 times. If it's not so dark, once or twice. The more you hatch through it, the darker the value. And sometimes a dot or a dash is enough. And sometimes you think, oh, okay, that's dark enough. And then you draw a little bit more somewhere else, and you come back and go, oh, it's not as dark as I thought it was. So you just add more. There's a little ear. And I'll probably have to come back into it. But if you get rid of the graphite there, I can get rid of all that graphite on the top. And it's just nice and clean. And that little edge is gone, but yet your eye sees it. It draws it in. So now that we've started there, we can just continue on from wherever you want to continue on. I'm just going to just do this other ear. Anytime you do hair, those little feathered lines work out great. And I'm barely touching the surface. I'm not even dragging my pen pushing down against the paper. I'm just letting it touch it, just barely touch it. You get a much better line. It's nice and thin and soft. Right here, where his little forehead and his ear meet right there, it's so hard to see that. So I'm not going to draw it in. When in doubt, leave it out. I'm just going to leave it out. If I need to, I could put a little dot or a dash in there. But just let it go. Whenever you're doing the wrinkles, just do a little kind of dot or dash or a little zigzag line. If it's a real heavy wrinkle, a zigzag line works well. If it's not, a couple little dashes or dots, just like that. There's a wrinkle. You don't want to add too much to those wrinkles. Otherwise, they start looking like crevices. Same thing with the little bridge of his nose. If I don't see a line, I'm not going to draw it in. If I don't see an edge, I just leave it out. If later on you decide, oh, I needed that, you can always put it back in. So I'm just kind of continuing on, kind of going left to right. And again, I want to get rid of all my graphite. So as soon as I draw a little edge or something, I'm going to get rid of that graphite. Anytime you have a shadow, some hatched lines, and you can decide, you know, how much you're going to hatch through that. When I first start using my pen, I think, oh, this looks terrible. You know, all these little lines, all these little dots and dashes. It looks terrible. It doesn't look smooth like I want it to. It will. Just give it some time, and as you go back over it, it will look better. So the more you go over it, the smoother it'll get. Even you can just do, like, if I went through this and did these little hatch lines like this, I mean, that looks kind of dumb. But as I go back over it and start doing some of these other little things, those lines kind of disappear and they just become part of the value of the background. So just little dots and dashes wherever you feel like you need some texture in there. Just pick out little shapes, you know, as you go. Don't think of it like as a nose or whatever it is you're drawing. Just think of it as shapes of dark and light. And your right brain is very patient. Left brain's not so patient. His nose really isn't defined by, there's not an edge there. It's defined by the mother's mouth. So I might be going through and doing some of the mother's nose down in here to define some of this stuff that he's got in here, using her, the shape of her shadows. His nose is very light, so you just leave some of that out. Kind of strange little critters. I think nature is wonderful. Also, his chin's very light, or his, you know, underneath his jawline there. So just a couple little dots and dashes. There's the wrinkle under his chin. A little wrinkle under his neck. Once I get the eye in, then I can get rid of all that graphite. Boy, that eye is really dark. It's kind of hard to see anything going on in there. I know there's got to be a little bit of a light in there somewhere. So as I hatch through this, I'm just going to kind of be aware that I might need to put a little bit of light in there somewhere. So I'm just going to leave a little bit out. And if it's not quite right, I can always come back into it and add some more. He's got eyelashes. Too right there. So I'm going to leave that soft and fuzzy over there. Little dots and dashes for the little wrinkles around his eye. I had a student teacher years ago that everything she drew with ink was circles. So she'd do these little circles, and at first I thought that's kind of strange, but you know, they started looking really well. So I guess it doesn't matter if it's little lines or dots or dashes or circles. As long as the values are correct, it'll look good. And y'all were taught the same way of writing when you were in kindergarten, but now all your writing is different. You've all kind of developed your own style, and that's good. Your art will be the same. You'll develop your own kind of voice, your own style. A little bit down his neck. He's got a little bit of hair going down his neck. I'm just going to throw that in, and the baby will be done as far as getting rid of the graphite. I want to get rid of that graphite. So rather than draw a line there, just do a couple little dots and dashes. If you need to adjust it one way or another, you can do that. But if you drew a line, you can't change it. Get rid of all that graphite. Oh, I always like this part because I hate the graphite. Now, no one ever knows that we use pencil to figure out where things went. There's a ton more to do down here. I'm going to go back into the mom because I want to get rid of that graphite as well. So I'm going to zoom out for just a minute. And again, I don't want a line around things. Just a few little dots and dashes where it looks a little darker. So that's it for that edge. Get rid of that graphite. And there's a ton more I can do there. But I just want to establish where things go without a line. I don't want a line around everything. She's got a little hairy chin, a few little feathered lines coming out, and that's really all you need there. The underside of the mother's jaw is light, and so I'm just going to do a couple little spots where the spots are and call it good. No line there. So that part's done. And of course, there's a ton more that I'll need to do there, but now I can get rid of all that graphite. I think I'm ready to get rid of everything. Big relief. Get rid of that graphite, then I'm not stuck with anything. And look how light and soft those edges are. The more you leave out, the more soft and fuzzy they feel. A couple little dots and dashes. That's it. Like I say, you can always go back into this. So if you think to yourself, oh, that's not quite dark enough, let it go for now. You can always come back into it later. Right down the bridge of her nose is fairly dark. So I'm just going to start out with these little hatched lines. Because I know it's dark, and then I'll go back over that 2 or 3 times maybe, depending on what I need to. And those little hatch lines will disappear. So we're just a combination of cross hatching, hatching, dots, till you get what you want. For much of ink, what goes on the inside isn't as important as what goes on the edges. Hair is one of those things that you can just scribble through hair, and as long as your edges look good, everybody knows what it is. So right here, I can just scribble through and make that dark, but my edge, when I come out of that, I want that feathered line, and that'll make it look soft and fuzzy. What's on the inside isn't so important. It can just be scribbly hatch marks, but that edge is important. I'm going to use now, again, the mother's nose, that darkness to define the edge here. It is very light, and so you could just kind of let that go. And if you think, oh, I need to define this a little bit, add a little dot or a dash, and that's a subliminal line. The viewer's eye makes that connection that that's part of the ear. You don't have to draw it in. And those hatch lines that I first put in there, look how they're disappearing. I mean, they get kind of lost in the texture. And those spots are defining our jawline and everything. And I'm not in the right place for those spots. I know that, but that's okay. As long as you're close. Closer the lines are together, the darker the value. Not drawing a line around anything. Just letting it take care of itself. All those edges, they'll define themselves. Mother's almost done. I mean, can always come back into her though. I mean that eye, I need to do more with the eye. But I want to get to the baby because it is our emphasis. That's the thing that people are going to be looking at. I want to make sure it's done properly. So all through the nose is fairly dark. I'm going to just hatch through this area and then come back into it. And all that hatch lines that you see there that kind of look crazy will disappear with all these other lines that I'm going to put in there. And I'm not really trying to get the wrinkles and everything exactly where they go. The important part is just you get them in there so it feels like the right texture. As long as you've got the eye where the eye goes, the mouth and the nose, everything else kind of falls into place. See how those lines that I threw in there, I mean, you still see some of them here. See how they just kind of disappear? They just become part of the value of it. So at first when you lay them in, you think, oh, that looks silly. Just have some trust that it'll look better. Now I'm ready to do some spots down his neck. And those are just going to be little feathered lines and zigzags. No, I'm looking at the eye thinking, oh, I thought it was dark enough, but it wasn't. I have to go back into it. Sometimes your eye adjusts to the light that's around things, and you have to kind of account for that too. I'm still looking at this thinking, oh, there's a ton more I need to do in there. But it's a good start. I'm not trying to make these spots perfect by any means. They're just there as part of the texture. The last thing you do is you want to spend a little time just going back over everything to make sure that it is as dark as it needs to be. That it has the texture that you need it to have. And it's kind of nice that we didn't have to draw a line around everything. It doesn't look cartoony. Your left brain wants to do that. It wants a fast solution. Right brain, it wants to do better. And of course, you'll want to sign it. Great place to sign it would be right over there, just kind of under the mother's chin. Not too close, but not too far away. I hope you all enjoyed yourself today. Hope you learned something new, and hopefully your experience has enhanced your life in some way. Tell you what, if you persevere with art, I know it's not easy, it can be very frustrating at times, but it will make your life better. And later on in your life, you'll be amazed what it can do for you. Because art makes life better.